Hello and welcome to another pattern recognition video. So one way to really improve your chess is to learn to recognize patterns. So how do you do that? Well, one easy way is to just solve chess puzzles. Now, a lot of times people will just solve puzzles. They'll do a puzzle and they'll just move on to another one and another one. And something that you can do that is better instead of doing that, because you might just forget those puzzles if you only look at them once. Instead, go through a set of puzzles. So I'm going to do 20 puzzles in this video, and then you can go through them once nice and slow, and then you go through them again, and then you go through again. And an ideal number, or a good number to work with, is 7 times. It takes about 7 times of looking at something for whatever you're studying to be burnt into your long-term memory. So the goal is you pick a set of puzzles. They could be random, or you could be focusing on something specific, whatever. But you go through those puzzles and then you repeat them again. And each time, try and do them faster. So the first time, take your time. The second time, maybe try and solve each puzzle in 5 minutes or less. Then 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2, until you get down to the 7th time that you go through those puzzles and you solve them with only a few seconds, 10 or 15 seconds per problem. And by then, the patterns will be burnt into your memory better, and you'll more easily recognize them in your own chess games, and it'll help you improve your tactics. All right, so this video is about forks, forking patterns, and a fork can also be a double attack. It's basically where you're attacking two or more pieces at the same time. So in this position, white has just moved this bishop here, attacking our rook. So generally, you want to look for checks first in any position. Look for checks, captures, and threats in that order. Maybe if there's a check, that's most forcing. So that could give you some kind of advantage, but here it doesn't look like there's any way to check the king immediately other than this knight here, but it could just be captured. So any captures, and by captures, look at unprotected pieces or pawns. Well, doesn't look like it. So then you have to look for threats, and you might have to look a little deeper and calculate a little bit longer. We could capture a rook here. Then if they capture our rook, we could move our rook out of the line of fire of this pawn by checking the king. And that would give our knight time to capture the bishop, and we'd go ahead and material. So pause at any time if you want to think on your own. If not, I'll try and move through these problems a little bit quicker here. So I'm thinking we capture, because then we have kind of a fork in play here, where if we capture, we're attacking the bishop. We're ahead in material, so they're either going to capture us here or capture with the bishop. So if the pawn, after we capture here, if the pawn captures, then we could go here, delivering a check, and the king would move here, and then the fork comes into play. We could fork the king and this rook here and try and go ahead in material. All right, so try and figure that out in your head, nice and slow this first time through, and then you can go through these problems faster. Or play my video a little bit faster if I'm moving too slow for you. All right, here we go. and the fork. So we fork the king and the rook, and we capture the more valuable rook with our less valuable knight. And after he recaptures, it'll also leave him with a weaker isolated pawn over here. So that was an 1182 rated problem. Something else when you're practicing for pattern recognition, you want easier problems. I've picked problems here from 500 to 1500. Maybe the 1500 will be a little bit too high for beginners. But in general, to practice pattern recognition, pick lower difficulty problems so you can practice the basics of recognizing those patterns. If you pick harder problems, then it's working more on your calculation skills. Maybe you need to work on that as well. But since this is about pattern recognition, let's just do easy problems here. Queen has just moved, threatening to attack, capture this pawn and attack our king. So that's not looking too good for us. But we're looking for forking patterns here. It's our turn. So take a look at this. Pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, let's look for the fork here. And remember, checks, captures, and threats in that order. So, do we have any checks? All right. We do have a check. Rook here or rook here. Which one would be better? And it makes a difference. All right, so pause if you need more time. If not, here we go. We're going to attack here. The king is going to drop down, and then we have our fork. So there we go. And we're able to pick off the queen and have a winning endgame. All right, on to the next problem. Oh, the king has just captured our knight. What do we do? We're behind in material now. Okay. All right. Well, what can we do here? Okay, I don't know if this is much of a forking problem here because the king has just moved forward. It was in check by our rook. Now our rook is cutting off the king, so hopefully that'll help you figure out what to do. We can't push this pawn because of the pin by the rook on our king, on the pawn against our king. So we can push this pawn, and it should deliver a mate. So, maybe there was some type of fork going on earlier in this game. But this was just a simple mate in one. Okay, on to the next problem. Capture here. We have a capture of the bishop. So do we just recapture? Or do we have something better? Okay. This is a great little tactic here. We want to look for checks, and if you look at all the checks, that should help you figure out what to do here. All right. Well, hopefully you figured this one out. We do not want to take this knight. We have a better move with a discovered attack on the king after we move the knight and fork the queen and the rook here. But we'll be able to take the queen because the king will be in check and have to deal with that. All right, calculate that out in your head. And here we go. Discovered attack, and now we can capture the queen unless we have a mate, which we do not, so we go after the material. And to top it off, we can grab that knight. All right, that was a 753 rated problem. And on to number 5 here. Okay, what happened there? The rook was under attack by our king and moves into the corner. Oh, okay, this sets up a great forking pattern. I know that sounded bad, but here we go. Let's check out a possible fork. So pause the video if you need more time to think. And sometimes you don't have an immediate fork. You have to set the fork up. So hopefully that little hint will help you. All right, here we go. We're going to capture the bishop with check here. So capture the bishop with check. And if the king doesn't want to go behind in material, he'll capture, but that doesn't help because then we have the bishop forking the king and the rook. All right, here we go. And we're ahead in material, and that'll be enough to win. Okay, on to the next one. Queen has moved forward, lining up on our king here, pinning the knight. Okay. What can we do? All right. Well, look for checks, captures, and threats in that order. So what checks do we have? Queen could go here, but then the king could just capture. Queen could go here, but then the knight could capture, or the king. If the queen goes up here, the knight can drop back and capture. All right. So maybe none of the checks work. I mean, we would like to be able to move this knight and fork the queen and the rook. And sometimes that'll help you solve dilemmas in your own games or problems, puzzles, as you look for your dream move that you would like to make. Even if it looks like it's not possible, you might be able to find a way to make it possible. All right, what can we do here? Well, do we want to give up our rook for that knight? Would that set anything up? Okay, maybe that's a possibility. Pause the video at any time if you need to think longer, but maybe we take the knight, and the opponent doesn't want to go behind in material, so it'd be obvious to just capture the rook. And what did that do? What changed after that? And that's something to ask yourself. Once a move is made, ask what changed in the position with that move. So now we don't have a pin any longer. Maybe we could move our knight up here and threaten a mate. Well, it's not quite a mate. Because the king could, push this pawn. Then if we go here, actually, hold on a minute. Let me go back. I'm making it overly complicated. We capture, queen captures, then we go here, threatening a mate. The queen would have to block, but then we could drop down, capturing a pawn, forking the king and the rook. All right, that might be a lot for you beginners, but try and calculate that out in your head if you can. So here we go. We're going to take the rook. We're going to check the king. The queen is forced to block because whenever you're in check, you only have three options: capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run. The king could not run and the queen couldn't be captured. The only option was to block. But now we can drop down, threatening a fork here. The queen is blocked to block the check and cover the rook. So what do we do now? Well, the final finish. We capture. King captures. Then our knight will fork the king and the rook here. And we'll go into a winning endgame. All right, so capture and the fork. All right, and knights are really dangerous when it comes to forking. Sometimes, especially beginners, may have problems when those knights are hopping around. Okay, pawn is pushed forward, unleashing the bishop. And it looks like another easy fork, and this is a good pattern to know. Whenever you have pieces lined up on the same diagonal, look for forking opportunities with the queen, bishop, not the rook, of course, because they can't go diagonally, but queens and bishops are good for diagonal forks. And we'll see how that works here. So we capture. Figure this out in your head. We're going to capture, and then what's going to happen? Well, the king is going to recapture, and then they'll be lined up on this diagonal, so we can move our bishop there and fork. So capture, capture, and fork, and that'll be enough to win with that extra bishop there. All right, here we go. On to the next one. A bishop attacks our queen. So what should we do here? Are there any forks involved? And I don't know. Sometimes these are all supposed to be forking problems, but sometimes they are not. Let's say, do we take the knight, attacking our opponent's queen? Then if they take our queen, we take their queen. And then if they move, we are able to retreat and we come out ahead a piece there. So that looks to be the way forward. But you want to calculate everything out. Double check your calculations if you have to. And that's why doing these pattern recognition problems will help you, because you might be slow at figuring these tactics out at first, but the more you do them, you'll be able to calculate faster over time. So if we take, they don't have to take. Well, I guess they do, because if the queen takes, well, then we just pick off the bishop here. So capture, now we capture, and if they retreat, what do? We're forced to take here, or they'll grab our bishop. So we go there, and we just, after they capture, we come out ahead a piece there. All right, on to the next problem. The knight has dropped back, attacking our bishop. Our bishop is protected by a pawn, but we would lose a pawn after that exchange. All right, what do we have here as white? Okay, the knight has just dropped back, attacking our bishop. What do we do here? The obvious move would be just to back up our bishop. And then if he captures, our pawn can capture, and it'll be backed up by this rook, but then he would have two people, two rooks versus our one protecting. All right. Okay, maybe this one will be trickier. Okay. Do we bring our rook up, attacking their rook, covering our bishop? But that wouldn't work because the pawn could capture our more valuable rook. Or, our pawn would capture and then our bishop would be unprotected there. Okay. So, what am I missing here? What am I not seeing? And are there any forks? We're looking for actual forks here. All right, this one is a little tricky. What can we do? Once again, do we bring the rook in here to help back this up? If he takes, well then, if we take either way, he's going to capture with one rook and then capture again with the other rook and go ahead a pawn. Then maybe we could attack with the other pawn. He could just block it. Okay, this one is turning out to be more difficult than I expected here. Okay, maybe we double our rooks up. Is that a good idea? Double the rooks. He captures. If we capture... All right, I might not get this one. This one is a little complicated. If we bring the rook over to help defend, he can capture. Then what do we capture with? If we capture with the rook, maybe we don't want to do that. He captures, we capture with the pawn, but then he's going to be able to capture, if we capture, then we don't really get much out of that. We have this pawn that's passed here. So do we double the rooks? Then he'll most likely capture. Then if we capture, he captures. All right, I don't know. This one is looking complicated. The obvious move, I don't know, might be this, but they don't want that. So maybe we double rooks up. They don't like that. Maybe they wanted this move. Okay, that's what they wanted. Okay, why would you give up your rook there? Why would you do that? Okay, yeah, I guess you would. Oh, they don't want you to capture the other way. Okay, that was a little more complicated. Okay, so here, we're going to grab that and we're just ahead in material. So what could have happened? If we go there, if they captured, what if they captured with the rook? They captured with the rook. And then if we capture, okay, am I seeing this right? We went here. Why didn't they capture it with the rook? Okay. Then if we capture, they can take this. Oh, and then maybe the pawns start marching up the board. All right, that one was kind of tough. Okay. Anyway, let's see what it actually was. That was rated 1025, so some of them are, maybe those kind of are a little too tricky for beginners. If you're working on pattern recognition, that would have been a good one for your calculation skills. All right, on to the next one. The queen is under attack here. What do we do? Okay, do we run? All right. Okay, this is a good fork pattern. Pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, here we go. We're going to go after the rook, sacrificing the queen temporarily. If they capture, then we just fork the king here and the queen over here. All right, so there we go. A good fork pattern there. On to the next one. Okay, the rook has moved forward here. Or excuse me, the rook is retreated back to protect the king for maybe a possible check here. So what are we going to do? Okay, well, we could set up a fork here. But is that the best thing to do? Now, there's two different things we could do here. Take a look at it. Pause the video if you need more time. Do we go here? Then if the king captures, we take the pawn, forking the king and the rook. Then the king moves. We pick off the rook. The king ends up where the rook was. And I don't know, it's looking dangerous with that passed pawn there. Our king can go 1, 2, 3 to get in front of it. But their king could go 1, 2 to prevent our king from going there. So I think we need to keep the rooks. Because of that, maybe we... Oh, we can't move the knight first, can we? Because then their knight could just capture ours. So maybe we're forced to do that, and perhaps there's something better. Capture, king captures, we take the pawn, forking, the king moves, then we grab, the king comes over here, and then we have to get our king moved over in front of this passed pawn. But we'll have our own passed pawn, so their king cannot come forward too far, or our own passed pawn will run. All right, that's what we need to do then. Try and figure that out in your head. Here we go. Capture, the fork, and take, Yeah, and that's what they wanted. Our own passed pawn saves us. Like our king can come out here, try and stop their passed pawn and guard our pawn. And if we move and he goes after that pawn and we pick this one off, we still have a pawn majority over here. All right. The next problem. The queen is attacking our rook. What do we do here? Okay. Are there any checks, captures, or threats? And we're supposed to be looking for forks. All right. Well, this battery is lining up on that pawn, but the knight's protecting it. But the immediate threat is our attacked rook there. Okay. Well, any checks? We don't want to go up there probably because that piece will just be picked off. We have a bishop that could line up on the king, but this is in the way for the moment. So maybe that's a possibility. So maybe, take the bishop, the queen takes, and the bishop pins these pieces. So that doesn't work because of this rook here. So maybe we need to chase that rook first. Or after we take care of this. So, capture, queen captures. If we attack the rook will have to move. And then that'll allow us to make that move. All right, here we go. All right. At least this way, once we take the queen, they'll get a bishop out of it. But we'll go ahead and material there. And that wasn't so much of a fork there. I mean, we were kind of, I guess that was the double attack. We were attacking the queen and the king. That was kind of a pin, pinning the queen to the king. All right, on to the next problem. The knight has what? Launched forward here, attacking our rook. Okay, what can we do? Oh. Well, hopefully you found this problem a simple fork. Here we go. So what we're going to try and do is move the bishop here, forking the knight and the queen. The queen will have to move off of this diagonal. Where is best? Maybe the queen moves forward, perhaps. Or gets on this diagonal right here somehow. Maybe with the threat of checking our king. But anyway, we're going to fork the knight and the queen. The queen will have to move, and then we can pick off the knight. It'll be backed up by the rook, but we have a queen attacking. So here we go. All right. Well, on to the next problem. Here we go. Rook has moved over, attacking our backward pawn here on d3. What can we do? We have to set up a fork. Another good pattern here. And yeah, a lot of times you just won't have a plain fork. Sometimes you have to set them up, as I mentioned before. But we have to watch out. Whatever we do, there's an attack here, which will be a capture with check. So we have to play a more forcing move with a check of our own. So how do we check? Knight here doesn't do much. So look for other checks. Hopefully you found this pawn check here. And because the knight covers these squares, the king will be forced to move over here. And then we can fork the king and the rook. All right, here we go. Check and fork. A good little forking pattern with the knight. All right, on to the next one. Rook has moved up here, attacking our rook, which was forking. Well, this pawn's protected, but it was attacking this unprotected one here. Okay. Maybe we have to set up another fork here. But first we have to take care of our rook. Take care of our rook problem. It's under attack. So, hopefully you found this one. Pause the video if you need more time. We have to take care of the rook, but then we'll have a fork after that. So what we're going to do is capture, the king captures, and then we move our knight, forking the king and the rook here. All right, here we go. And once the king captures, we have a rook for a knight, and that should help us win, especially since the rook can cover all squares on the board, whereas a bishop wouldn't be able to do that. And there are pawns on both sides of the board, and the rook can zip back and forth a lot faster than a knight can. Okay. A capture here by the queen. All right, what do we have in this position? All right, it looks like a simple fork. Hopefully you found this, and there's a little more to this problem because we have to watch out. The queen is attacking this knight and this rook, and if he takes the rook, our queen, or excuse me, our king will be under attack. So we need to look for forcing checks first. And our queen, has multiple squares it can check from, but probably best is this one because it leads to a fork of the rook and the king. All right, but the follow-up is important to this. So we're going to go ahead, capture this pawn with the fork. Okay. Now, if the king moves here, well, then we can just capture the rook, and that'll be okay because the king will be attacked again, and that'll give us time to at least deal with our rook so we don't lose our rook. So if the king goes down here, well, then we can capture this pawn with check and a fork here. Because the king would have to move either back up where we can check after we capture the rook, or if the king moves down here, well, then we have a fork of king and queen. All right, here we go. And he does run down that way. Okay, and like I said, well, he does have the option to block with this pawn. All right. Well, I wish it would have played out further because if he blocked with that pawn, things are a little bit more complicated. All right. Well, I guess even if we capture the rook, we're protecting our knight. If they go after our rook, our king can just move up. Okay, on to the next problem. Let's wrap this up. Queen has just moved forward, attacking our queen. They're in confrontation with one another here. What do we do? Let's see. Um, okay. There's a nice little fork here, and often these are overlooked because it involves a piece that you don't normally think too much about forks with, but they probably happen more often than you think. All right, take a look at this, see if you can figure it out. If you need a hint, the hint is that a pawn move could be involved in this. So, here we go. We capture their queen. The rook recaptures. Then a pawn moves. Sometimes people really overlook these pawn moves. And the pawn will fork the rook and the knight at the same time. So the rook will probably move. And then we can just pick off the knight. All right, here we go. The pawn fork. And then we just pick that off. And so I guess they'll just recapture. And we'll just be ahead a knight there. Okay. Bishop has just captured. Was that a pawn there? And our knight is under attack. So what can we do? All right. Oh, it opens our opponent up for a nice little fork there. So see if you can find the fork. This is a good little pattern. All right, here we go. The knight just jumps up here, forking the king and the bishop. So, look out for these knight forks. They can be especially dangerous. So there we are. And now their bishop's under attack. But we're ahead in material and should win. The final two problems. Okay, queen is attacking our rook. What do we do? Okay. We can set up a little fork here. Well, take a look at it. Pause the video if you need more time. If not, here we go. We're going to bring our rook over here, forcing our king to take it because the knight is covering that square. Or forcing the king to take that. And then we can jump in here, forking the king and the queen. So, yeah, these knights can be really dangerous. With all their crazy forks. Okay, so here we go. Try and figure that out in your head if you can. Which it shouldn't be too difficult for you. Here we go. And the fork. Okay, we're on to the final problem, number 20. What was that? A rook just captured our rook? Okay. What do we do now? The obvious looking move might be to just capture back with our queen. Okay. And their queen is under attack. But maybe we need to simplify the position. If we ignore the attack on our queen, take their queen, if they take our queen, then that would allow us to take their rook with check. Oh, and then pick off their bishop. Okay. So a lot going on there, and another reason to practice these patterns, to recognize them and see more of what's going on and be able to dig a little bit deeper into these tactics. Okay, so we take their queen. If they capture, then of course we keep our queen, so they're not going to do that. So we take their queen, they take our queen, but then that allows us capture with check. King will have to move, then we can capture their bishop. All right, so here we go. And we just end up ahead a bishop in the endgame, which should be enough to win. All right, well, that was 20 problems. Hopefully you did well in those. You can go back over these, and try and go a little bit faster each time. Fast forward the video if you need to, if I'm going too slow for you. But anyway, study those tactics to help you recognize the patterns, and then you'll be able to use those patterns in your own games, to see them to attack with and also to prevent attacks against you. Feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel, and thank you for watching. Have a super chess day.